Hey folks, it's Abby and Kelsey from the Anxious Outdoors, and today we're going to Beaver Island. It's that time of year again, the time where the Ernsties set out on their long-awaited family trip. The Christmas present for both my parents every year is that me and my sister plan a trip. And this year we decided that Beaver Island would be the perfect destination. We left bright and early on a Wednesday morning to get from our home downstate up to Charlevoix on the coast of Lake Michigan, where our boat would depart from. We got there with plenty of time to explore the town before boarding our boat to head to the island. With our bikes and luggage checked in, we boarded the boat and picked a spot up on the top so that we could enjoy the view. It was super exciting to depart the harbor. Lots of people stood on the canal and waved at us, and we got to go under the drawbridge, which was kind of a highlight for us. It really amped up the feeling that we were heading out on some kind of grand adventure. With our binoculars at the ready, we were super excited to enter the big lake and get a vast view of the shore. We were very lucky on our way over that the sun was out and the waters were calm, and we could really just sit back, relax, and enjoy the view and the journey over to the island. I can say that throughout the entire 2-hour ferry ride, I was entertained simply by looking out into the lake and peeking at both the mainland and the island, which you could see during the entire journey. It was very exciting to watch the mainland fade away and watch the island fade into view. All of the other passengers on the boat exuded that same air of excitement that we were feeling inside. Probably due to the fact that one does not go to Beaver Island to work, but for play. As we approached the harbor town of St. James, a crowd began to form on the front of the boat to watch us as we came onto the docks. There also was a crowd gathered on the dock waiting for the incoming ferry, and no doubt some loved ones arriving on the island, which gave us all a little tickle of happy joy bubble emotion as we stepped into paradise. Our Airbnb was a short quarter-mile walk from the dock, and although we were weighed down by our luggage, we felt like we were floating, being on our last leg of our 5-hour journey to get there.
You think we packed enough? You think I did?
Our sweet little rental was tucked behind the art gallery and had everything we needed and then some. We spent most of our time out on the porch though, which was our favorite feature at staying at this place. Having settled into our home for the next few days, we ventured out to explore and get our bearings. And we soon took to our bikes, which were our only form of transportation for the vacation, so that we could get a wider view. We checked out the campground closest to the town of St. James, which seemed to have a really nice setup, and a good view of Lake Michigan and the northern islands in the archipelago, including the very mysterious, very cool Garden Island. We stopped along Font Lake, named for its use as a baptismal well by religious organizations on the island, and we were greeted by a pair of loons and their baby, and that was a super exciting way to start off the vacation. We then meandered down to Donegal Bay, which houses one of the largest public sandy beaches on the island and has a beautiful view of High Island, which is the tallest island in the Beaver Island archipelago. We were there just in time to experience some of the beautiful light of the golden hour and also do a little bit of people watching. We then headed back to our Airbnb to get a good night's sleep so that we could get a good early start on our first full day on the island. One of our favorite ways to explore a new place is to get out for an early morning run and see some of the sights up close while making good time, getting good exercise. So I took my early morning run along the road in St. James out to a point next to the lighthouse, and then I discovered a road that used to go around the north part of the island, but now has succumbed to Lake Michigan. But that sure did not stop me from continuing around where the road used to be with some waterlogged shoes, but some of the best views I have ever had on a run. And of course, a little loon action. And I eventually found a road that would take me back inland, away from the lake, and past some of the absolutely darling cottages that are nestled in the island area. And I really enjoyed running on these gravel roads. There was so much to look at, and it was so quiet that I could run there forever. After the run, my mom and I went to go check out a park that was right down the road from our Airbnb. It had a lot of antique farm implements in it, but we also noticed that the islanders had made these just fantastic little fairy gardens. We found so many unique little setups, and we just had the best time looking at all of them and finding where they had hidden them. So here is a montage of those. this point, we regrouped all together and headed out to the Whiskey Point Lighthouse, which also houses an old Coast Guard station that's now used by the CMU Biological Station, which was super exciting for me because I'm a graduate of CMU, so I love seeing all of their influence around the area. The Whiskey Point Lighthouse no longer has its keeper's quarters attached, so it stands alone, which I think is super neat and kind of eerie, but in a cool lighthouse ghost way. So we really enjoyed getting a nice panoramic view of that one. We finished up our morning bike ride with a trip to the end of the road that I had been at earlier, and then we turned around, hit the grocery store, and got some yummy little snacks for lunch. After lunch, it was a trip to the island thrift store, which was just down the road from our Airbnb, and apparently is a hotspot for tourists and islanders alike on the 3 days a week it is open. So we found some treasures there. Here's Kelsey modeling them for her mom.
And Abby liked it, so we're gonna share it. Happening, wasn't it?
Then it was back to our bikes to see a few more sights on the island. This was Barney Lake, one of the few inland lakes that, of course, also has loons. We saw loons there, which was magical. And it was a very pretty spot to stop along our bike ride. So we spent some time enjoying that one. We then headed to a island landmark that is Protar's house. Fyodor Protar was a vivacious man who lived a very kind of crazy life before retiring to the island for a life of peace and working his land and helping the people of the island. So he was not originally a doctor, but he kind of became a doctor on the island of community wellness. He would help people with things like common cold and indigestion, just practices that helped keep the people of the island healthier. He grew all of his own vegetables and subsistence, farmed the land, and had his own calendar that he lived by, and he just kind of lived a very beautiful life. So we had a lot of fun exploring his grounds and admiring some of the fruit trees that were still there from his time, and enjoying the thought of a life that was well lived and peacefully lived in the woods. The simplicity of it all was just really beautiful. then we visited Protar's tomb, which was built by the islanders after his death. He had said that he really just wanted to be thrown into Lake Michigan as a burial, but that is illegal. So the islanders got together and made this beautiful kind of shrine to him. And the inscription says, "To our beloved friend who was there in our time of need," which was really beautiful. After that bike ride, we were in need of a good swim, so we headed down to the St. James Public Beach. It's a quaint little beach in the middle of town and very sandy. We got to watch the ferry take off for the day, which was kind of one of the highlights of every day. We'd try to see when the ferry leaves, which was always, for some reason, very exciting to watch all the people come and go. All of the animals on the island were very docile, kind of friendly. So this is me trying to be best friends with some ducks. They eventually are not very happy with my presence, but I thought I'd give it a try. After that, we headed out for dinner at the Shamrock Pub right in downtown St. James and enjoyed burger and a beer night. Then we walked down to the Beaver Island Lodge, trying to make an attempt to see the sunset. Although when we got there, we realized that it was private property, but we did get a glimpse of that lovely sunset from around the lodge. And then it was off to bed for us. The next morning's exploratory run took me to some new sites, including these mossy hills, which island lore says that the fairies on the island live in these mossy little hills. So I admired the flowers and kind of thought about the magic of the island there. And then I ran by the Brothers, which is a inn that you can stay at in Beaver Island. It has the second longest porch in Michigan, second to the Grand Hotel, which is on Mackinac Island. But I loved the concept of that giant screened-in porch. I could just imagine spending all morning enjoying coffee and company on the screened-in porch. So maybe that is in our future, staying there. I then explored some of the 2 tracks around the island. I love that turtle crossing sign. We noticed lots of these very knobby white pine trees, which were kind of cool to think about how they ended up that way. There was a gravel truck on that 2-track. I assumed building a cabin back there, but I headed off into the woods away. And then for a morning dip after my run, which was super nice. And once again, tried to befriend the ducks. They were also enjoying their morning dip. We found another quirky little islander shrine in this tree's hole and had a lot of fun. Felt like an I Spy book. We just thought it was super fun and quirky. So that was right in town. then this morning we checked out the Marine Museum, which is on the harbor. It was once someone's net shack where they stored and tied their nets for fishing, but it was a really well-kept museum with lots of very interesting island lore and shipwreck information and all that fun stuff. So we took our time ambling through this museum. It also had a restored fishing boat that we could kind of check out and admire. So I spent some time looking at the Bob S here. One of the coolest little facts I learned about this boat while I was exploring was that they had found the engine for it in several parts in a barn in one of the historically preserved areas of the island, and piece by piece had polished it and put it back together in working order and put it on the boat. So that was a super neat thing to see. They had the whole process documented in a scrapbook that you could look at while you looked at the engine.
Hi, Dad.
There was also a very good display about an infamous Lake Michigan shipwreck of the Carl D. Bradley, and some really cute fishing boats outside of the shack. I really like the Nancy. It looks so pretty against the blue. We then got some coffee at the Wild Strawberry Cafe and explored the Mormon Print Shop Museum, which houses the most expansive collection of Beaver Island history information. After lunch, it was once again time to take to our bikes, and we headed out to Little Sand Bay. From there, we hiked from the parking lot out to the lake. It was a short hike, but there was a lot of different things to look at. So it started in this farm field that once belonged to a family on the island. And we hiked through some sculptures and lots of beautiful flowers. And then we entered this magical boardwalked cedar forest with a creek winding through it. And finally, we popped out on this beach, which we had all to ourselves for the entire few hours that we were at it, which was amazing. It was also right by one of the airports on the island, so we got to watch all of the landing incoming planes, which was a fun experience. I spent some time playing in the cool waters of the creek that spit right out into Lake Michigan on the beach. And of course, we once again caught the sight of the ferry, this time coming to the island with new, this would have been Friday evening passengers, so. And speaking of Friday evenings, we spent ours out trying to catch a sunset, although we were on the north end of the island, so not getting the best west-facing view, but we enjoyed exploring this beach at the Beaver Island Township Campground. I am the coolest dad. After our sunset bike, Kelsey and I took it a little further back down to where the road ends into the lake to try to catch a view at a passing ship. And then, although we didn't see the ship, we did see a beautiful, beautiful take on the Whiskey Point Lighthouse with the moon. It was a bit eerie being out at night on our bikes, but it also was so quiet and peaceful that we really enjoyed ourselves taking in the island life at a different time of night. The next morning, we woke bright and early to hit the road on our bikes for a 36-mile loop of the island. We were trying to see as much as we could in our short time there, which included the big birch, the largest birch tree known in Michigan, which was super magical to see.
You know how I feel about my big trees.
We also got to see the Found Souls tree, which is exactly what it looks like, a tree full of shoes. But it did have a certain charm to it. And right down the road from that was the Big Rock, which is exactly what it sounds like, a really big rock, but we enjoyed playing on it.
It's kind of fun.
We then saw the very peaceful Miller's Marsh and headed down around Iron Ore Bay. But the stop we were by far most excited for was the lighthouse that is on the south side of the island, the Beaver Island headlight. And much to our excitement, the lighthouse was open for us to climb the stairs so that we could enjoy the view from the top.
Oh, I love these. Don't look down, don't look down. I look down.
Is this it? Nope.
The ladder at the top. You gonna make it down?
Yep.
You know,
My legs are tingling.
these tiny little steps
What's
are...
in here?
Oh, there's one more level.
Is there?
The view from the top was very much worth the excruciating climb upwards. We headed down and around the corner on the beach in front of the lighthouse to explore the foghorn signal building. From that stop, we stuck our heads down and pedaled all the way back to our Airbnb. Here I am, getting back on my bike. Our afternoon activity was heading down to Donegal Beach, where we spent our time napping and swimming and enjoying the sun and sand and the view of High Island, which was super cool from this particular beach. Then we enjoyed a brew at the Whiskey Point Brewery, the only brewery on the island, which had really good beer. And then we headed to another beach to try to catch the last sunset of our nights on Beaver Island. And this sunset was a real beaut. Reflected on our time on the island, our favorite parts, and how we couldn't believe that it flew by so fast, and how lucky we are to get to experience this kind of natural beauty so close to home living in Michigan. And it's not just the natural beauty of Beaver Island that makes it so special. It's the rich and such interesting history that exudes on this little tiny island, as well as the quirky charm of the places and the people who reside and vacation there. You've never waved at so many people and smiled and had conversations with strangers that just felt very genuine. We took the long way home back to our Airbnb, making sure that we took one last glance at the cute little town of St. James and the beautiful boats in the harbor with the sunset. Existing on that peaceful island time for a few more moments. Locked up our bikes one last time before heading off to a deep sleep. We awoke the next morning to try to catch the 8:20 a.m. ferry off the island with all of our belongings on our backs, and we said goodbye to what is now one of our most favorite places. Because we took the early ferry, we ended up on the unfortunate combination of the smaller of the two boats that run from the Beaver Island Boat Company, as well as some of the choppiest waters I have seen on Lake Michigan, which made for a bumpy ride. And while some of us, those two being my Kelsey and my dad, enjoyed it more than others, being me and my mom, we made it safely back to shore and laughed about it all the rest of the day. Returning to the mainland was very bittersweet, and we were greeted in the same way we were sent off a few days earlier when we were leaving for the island and heading through the drawbridge once again. But we definitely felt a little bit different, a little lighter, a little happier, a little more full of that Beaver Island friendliness and magic from our time on the island.